I've always loved the sound of falling snow. There's something about it that feels rare and intimate, like watching lightning crack across the sky or catching a glimpse of a shooting star. It's one of those things you don't control, something that doesn't always show up when you want it to. But when it does, it feels like a gift meant just for you. I'm not the outdoorsy type. Hiking has never really been my thing. But snow does something to me. When it starts coming down thick and quiet, it's like an itch in the back of my mind that won't go away. I have to be in it. This happened on one of those nights. I live in a woodsy area, not deep in the forest exactly, but close enough that trees surround most of the neighborhood. If I wanted to reach a dense, sprawling forest, all it would take is a short drive. That night, I didn't have anything important the next day. No work, no plans. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday. I remember feeling slightly hungover from going out the night before, which is probably why the quiet felt even heavier than usual. What really stuck with me, though, was the fact that it wasn't supposed to snow. I'm obsessive about checking the weather during winter. Multiple apps, multiple times a day. And I clearly remember that snowfall wasn't in the forecast. That's why it caught me so off guard. I was sitting in my room, reading when it started. Not gradually, not lightly. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. I didn't even notice it right away. But when I finally glanced out my window, the ground was already coated in white. The flakes were falling thick and fast, swallowing sound and light alike. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and without giving it much thought, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Take a walk. I grabbed my coat, drove to a nearby hiking trail and parked. The place is usually quiet, but that night it was completely deserted. No cars, no lights, just snow and darkness. When I stepped out of the car, I stood there for a moment, letting the cold bite into my face. Snowflakes brushed against my eyelashes. The forest ahead of me looked endless, black shapes swallowed by white. I started walking. I didn't have a plan, no destination. My only goal was to get deeper into the woods, far enough that the world behind me would disappear. After about 20 minutes, I finally felt satisfied. The silence was total, the kind that makes your ears ring. That's when I heard it. At first, my brain didn't register the sound as anything meaningful. It was out of place, like a wrong note in a song. I stopped walking. My breath fogged in front of me. Then I heard it again. "Hi." A child's voice. Standing alone in the middle of snowy woods, it was the last thing I expected. What made it worse was the fact that I couldn't tell where it came from. The voice felt scattered, like it echoed from several directions at once. I spun around, heart pounding. Nothing. No movement, no prints, just trees and falling snow. I told myself my mind was playing tricks on me. Isolation does weird things to people. I was just about to turn back towards my car when I heard it again. "Hi." Then a teasing voice. "Up here, silly." I didn't think. I just looked up. And that's when I saw him. A little boy, maybe 9 years old, sitting casually on a tree branch not far from me, bundled up for the cold. His legs dangled like this was the most normal place in the world to sit. My first thought wasn't fear, it was confusion. The lowest branch of that tree was at least 20 feet off the ground. For some reason, seeing him actually calmed me at first. At least now I knew where the voice was coming from. I slowly walked towards the tree, never taking my eyes off him. He smiled, a wide, stiff smile, like someone who hadn't quite learned how to smile yet, like he was mimicking something he'd seen before. The longer I looked at it, the more uncomfortable I felt. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were no footprints around the tree. None. Which meant he'd climbed it before it started snowing.
meaning he'd been sitting up there for at least 45 minutes, maybe longer. And that was assuming he could even climb it at all. The trunk was straight, no low branches, no obvious handholds. Even someone with climbing experience would struggle. That realization sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cold. He waved at me. I asked him how he got up there. He told me it was a secret. Then he just kept smiling.
For a moment, neither of us spoke. The snow kept falling. The forest stayed silent. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me something was wrong, but I couldn't just leave a kid alone in the woods. Before I could figure out what to say next, the boy stood up on the branch. "Watch this," he said. I didn't have time to react. He leaned backward and fell. At least 30 feet. I screamed. There was nothing else I could do. He hit the ground with a sickening thud, flat on his back. No amount of snow could have softened a fall like that. I was sure he was dead. I ran toward him. My heart was in my throat, but before I could reach him, he sprang to his feet and took off running. Laughing. The sound echoed through the trees as he disappeared deeper into the woods, and against all logic, against every instinct screaming at me to leave, I ran after him. I don't know what came over me. Even now, it doesn't make sense. I'm not reckless. I'm not brave. In any other situation, I would have turned around immediately. But something about that night, about that boy, pulled me forward. I chased him. His footprints were clear in the fresh snow, small, erratic, cutting deeper into the forest. I followed them. My breathing was ragged. My boots slipped as I tried to keep pace. I told myself he couldn't have gotten far. He was just a kid who had fallen 30 feet and gotten back up like nothing happened. That thought alone should have stopped me. As I ran, I started hearing him again, laughing. It wasn't the laugh of a child having fun. It was sharp, erratic, too loud, too deliberate. Cackling, like he knew exactly what he was doing, like this was a game, and I was playing right into it. The sound bounced through the trees, making it impossible to tell where he was. One moment it felt distant, the next, right behind me. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. His footprints veered around a tree. As I ran past that same tree, something slammed into my back. I didn't even have time to scream. The impact knocked the air out of me. I went down hard, face first into the snow. Before I could roll over, before I could even breathe, I felt weight on top of me. He was on me. The boy clawed at my neck and shoulders with terrifying strength. His fingernails dug into my skin, ripping, tearing. I screamed. I thrashed blindly. My hands grabbed at whatever I could reach. He started wailing, high-pitched, shrill, but it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like excitement. I felt warmth against the cold, blood. I could feel it running down my neck, soaking into my clothes. He scratched at my face, and for a horrifying moment, I thought he was going to take my eyes. Then adrenaline kicked in. I managed to get my footing. I stood up, the boy still clinging to me like an animal. With everything I had left, I twisted and flung him over my shoulder. He hit the ground hard. For a split second, he lay there motionless, and I dared to hope it was over. Then he laughed. He sprang to his feet and bolted into the woods again, disappearing into the darkness, his laughter fading with him. This time, I didn't chase him. If it weren't for the pain, for the blood coating my hands, I think I might have just stood there forever, frozen. My neck burned. When I touched it, my fingers came away slick, red. I wasn't wearing a scarf. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pull my hat off.
I wrapped it tightly around my neck, pressed hard to stop the bleeding. My vision felt fuzzy. My breathing was completely out of control. I was having a panic attack. The next 20 minutes are a blur. I don't remember how I got back to my car. I don't remember driving. Only flashes, street lights, red and blue lights reflecting off snow, someone yelling my name. The next clear memory, I was lying in the back of an ambulance. Bright lights, the smell of antiseptic, someone pressing gauze against my neck, asking questions I could barely answer. After that, the police. They made me tell the story over and over again. I didn't understand why they looked at me like that, like they were trying to catch me in a lie. To me, everything was simple. Terrifying, but simple. I told them exactly what happened. I didn't realize until later why they were so skeptical. While I was in the hospital, they searched the area. They found nothing. No sign of the boy, no disturbance in the snow. They followed the trail I had taken, and according to them, there was only one set of tracks, mine. When they told me that, something inside me broke. I was furious. I accused them of not searching properly, of cutting corners. But why would they lie? By the time I was discharged, I was exhausted, physically, emotionally. All I wanted was sleep. A day or two later, honestly I can't remember which, I went back to the trail. It had snowed again, heavily. My footprints were gone, buried beneath fresh snow, like they had never existed. I searched the forest for hours, every tree, every clearing. There was no sign that anyone had ever been there. No footprints, no blood, nothing. To this day, it's one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me.
This next story happened during winter break. I was 19 years old. For a little under 2 weeks, I had the house entirely to myself. At first, it felt freeing. No rules, no noise, no one to check in with. But after a few days, the quiet started to feel heavy. During the second week, a massive snowstorm rolled in. The forecasts were calling it historic. For once, they weren't exaggerating. Snow started falling sometime during the night. By the time I woke up that Saturday morning, nearly a foot had already accumulated, and it was still coming down hard. Plows struggled to keep up. By mid-afternoon, the roads were barely passable. I should probably explain what my neighborhood is like. It isn't your typical suburban layout. The houses are spread far apart. Thick wooded stretches separate properties. In the summer, it's peaceful. In the winter, especially during a storm, it feels isolating, like you've been cut off from the rest of the world. That day, with the snow falling nonstop and no cars on the road, it felt especially dead. By around 6 in the evening, I was losing my mind from boredom. To make things worse, the Wi-Fi had gone out while I was sleeping. No games, no videos, no distractions. The only person I really knew nearby was my friend Ryan. I'd hung out with him the day before. I knew he was home. While pacing my room, an idea popped into my head. One that seemed hilarious at the time. I'd walk to his house and surprise him. It was stupid. I know that now. This next story happened during winter break. I was 19 years old. For a little under 2 weeks, I had the house entirely to myself. At first, it felt freeing. No rules, no noise, no one to check in with. But after a few days, the quiet started to feel heavy. During the second week, a massive snowstorm rolled in. The forecasts were calling it historic. For once, they weren't exaggerating. Snow started falling sometime during the night. By the time I woke up that Saturday morning, nearly a foot had already accumulated, and it was still coming down hard. Plows struggled to keep up. By mid-afternoon, the roads were barely passable. I should probably explain what my neighborhood is like. It isn't your typical suburban layout. The houses are spread far apart. Thick wooded stretches separate properties. In the summer, it's peaceful. In the winter, especially during a storm, it feels isolating, like you've been cut off from the rest of the world. That day, with the snow falling nonstop and no cars on the road, it felt especially dead. By around 6 in the evening, I was losing my mind from boredom. To make things worse, the Wi-Fi had gone out while I was sleeping. No games, no videos, no distractions. The only person I really knew nearby was my friend Ryan. I'd hung out with him the day before. I knew he was home. While pacing my room, an idea popped into my head. One that seemed hilarious at the time. I'd walk to his house and surprise him. It was stupid. I know that now. But I was 19, bored, and convinced it would be funny. The distance was about 1.5 miles, maybe a little more. I'd walked further before, so I bundled up and headed out. By then, the snow had stopped. Everything was coated in a thick, untouched blanket. The streetlights cast a dull orange glow. The light reflected off the snow, making the whole world feel unreal. I could hear my breathing, the crunch of my boots. That was it. Not a single car, not a person, not even the distant hum of traffic. It was eerily peaceful. About halfway to Ryan's house, the road passed through a long stretch with no homes, just trees on either side, and a few empty lots. During the day, it's nothing special. That night, with the snow and silence, it felt wrong. That's when the loneliness really hit me. Still, I kept walking. Then, I saw headlights ahead. They were far off, but clearly coming toward me. I stopped and watched them get closer. It was a snowplow, moving slowly, its lights cutting through the darkness. And then, without warning, it swerved, hard. The plow veered sharply to the right, like the driver had lost control or was trying to avoid something. I watched it slide off the road and vanish into the tree line. A muffled crunch echoed through the woods. Then, silence. My first thought, someone had just crashed. I started running. The snow was deep, it slowed me down, but all I could think about was that someone might be hurt. It took a few minutes, but I reached the spot. I could clearly see where the vehicle had gone off the road. I followed the tire tracks into the trees. The plow was exactly where I expected it to be. Its front end crumpled against a tree. The headlights were still on, the engine was still running. I rushed to the driver's side, already bracing myself for what I might see. But when I looked inside, the seat was empty. I froze. I checked the passenger side. Empty. I pulled the driver's door open, thinking maybe the driver had slumped down or been thrown forward. Nothing. The entire plow was empty. There was nowhere else someone could have been. I stood there in the snow, staring at the wreck. A creeping sense of dread settled into my chest. The headlights hummed, the engine idled. Snow fell softly around me. There were no footprints, none leading away from the vehicle. Whoever had been driving it had simply vanished. That's when I felt it. Not a thought, an instinct, a deep, overwhelming sense that I needed to leave immediately. I backed away from the plow and started walking back toward the road. I hadn't gone far when I heard it. A voice. A man's voice, yelling for help from somewhere behind me. Every part of me wanted to turn around. That was why I'd run over there in the first place. But my body refused. My instincts were screaming at me to keep moving. I started running. As I put distance between myself and the wreck, I heard the voice again. Closer. Impossibly closer. No one could move that fast through such deep snow. I didn't turn around. I ran the rest of the way to Ryan's house. By the time I reached it, I was completely out of breath. My legs burned, my chest felt tight, my hands shook from more than just the cold. Any excitement I had felt was gone. All I wanted was to be somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere with other people. I stumbled up to the front door and knocked. Ryan's mom answered. The moment she saw me, her expression changed.
I must have looked unhinged, face flushed, clothes dusted with snow, breathing like I'd run for my life. She asked if everything was okay. I could barely get the words out. Ryan came to the door a second later. I tried to explain. The snowplow, the crash, the empty driver's seat. I could tell by the way they looked at me, it sounded insane. Still, Ryan's dad didn't hesitate. He grabbed his phone and called the police.